Hey there, listeners. This is Justin with a quick note before today's episode. Spotify recently allowed users to start leaving reviews for podcasts, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider listening to the show on Spotify, leaving us a positive review. I don't even think you have to write anything in. You just give a star rating, and that's it. But if you're willing to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks, and enjoy today's show. Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Asiri, and my goal is to help members of the military community thrive in their post-service career and life. Today's a mindset episode. Normally, in the 415 other episodes we've done, I almost always interview a military veteran about their civilian career, what they do, how they got there, and advice for others seeking to do the same. I want to counteract that this month with a few mindset episodes. And to be completely candid, these are things that I am actively working on myself. I learned in the military that if you want to learn something, you should teach it. And so that's part of my intention behind these series. And the other intention is that there are things that are really helping me in my own life and career, and I hope benefit you as well. So today we are going to be talking about feelings. And this is coming from a book I have right here in front of me, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, A New Paradigm for Sustainable Success. I am hoping to, first of all, do a book review of this once I finish. I'm about a third of the way through. And I'm also reaching out to the authors because I want to have them on the show. I think it's a fantastic book. A friend of mine who I meet with every single Wednesday for an hour just to kind of sharpen each other as entrepreneurs, he recommended this book. He runs a 15-person company. He's had every single employee read this book, and I plan to do the same with future hires. I think it's such an incredible lexicon of skills and values that I just think would supercharge any company. So high endorsement for this book. But one of the chapters they have is about feelings. And what I'm appreciating about this chapter as well as the book is that a lot of the things that they're covering, I have learned in other areas of my life. So with meditation, I did a lot of work around something called nonviolent communication with Marshall Rosenberg, voice dialogues, which is about talking to different parts of yourself and giving them voice. And then most recently, multiple years of men's groups. And what I appreciate about this is that they just really articulated a lot of what I've learned very succinctly in a business setting, and I just think it's fantastic. So what I took away from this is that we all have feelings, obviously, and feelings, as they put it, are emotion is just energy in motion. Feeling is nothing more than just energy moving in our body. And one of the reasons that I like that distinction, as they point out, is that it kind of detaches us from the feelings. It's akin to hunger pains. Like, you don't feel bad when your stomach's growling and you're hungry. It's just something going on in your body. And in the same way, they're making the argument that we don't need to feel bad if we're feeling sadness, if we're feeling anger or fear. It's just things that are happening in our body. And I like that distinction. They talked about how sorry, I was looking for the next point here. I've just got my book in front of me. They talk about how most of us experience feelings, and they've done, Harvard has done research on this, for about 90 seconds. That's the typical length an emotion lasts. And as you and I both know, we sometimes experience feelings for weeks, and that's because our mind latches onto it, and we really get stuck in those feelings. But the actual felt sensation is very, very short, and then we kind of cling on to it in our mind with stories. We prolong it when it doesn't need to be prolonged. And, I think that we can all relate to the value in work and at home if we can not have those feelings last for so long, or at least be more aware of them. So another thing that I liked about this is that they are very clear on the primary feelings that we all experience. And this is kind of like red, yellow, blue. Am I right on that? Those are the three primary colors. I feel embarrassed saying this. My 2.5-year-old has not gotten to that stage of development yet, so I haven't brushed up on it. But just like there are primary colors from which thousands and thousands of shades derive, they pinpoint primary feelings, of which there's obviously many, many, many subtle variations. So just to name those, they call these primary emotions anger, fear, sadness, joy, and sexual feelings. And they equate sexual feelings also to creativity and giving birth to ideas in a business setting. Anger, fear, sadness, joy, and sexual feelings. So the protocol that they give, and they work with companies around this, and I love this, is a protocol around releasing emotions. So the first thing that they have you do is once you identify the emotion from those five, let's say that you're feeling anger, that the next thing that they have you do is locate the sensation in your body. And one of the ways I'll read this, I like this, they said that they encouraged people to imagine that their body is made up of billions of bits. Asking yourself this useful question, what are the bits doing? Words like twisting, popping, tightening, spinning, and flowing are good descriptions. Be as specific and granular as possible. So what they're encouraging you to do is trying to locate, I feel fear in my belly. I feel sadness in my throat. I feel sadness in my face. I feel anger in my chest. They don't talk about this, but one of the reasons I like this approach is that if we can establish a stronger connection between our mind and our body, it allows us to tap into some really incredible wisdom. And when I've gotten good at this, not all the time, but I'll actually feel like, let's say, a tightening in my stomach. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling afraid. Okay, what's that about? And so we can kind of have a two-way dialogue. So that's one of the reasons I like this approach of starting by feeling where this feeling is occurring in your physical body. The next step is to breathe, which is always a great step, but really breathing into your belly, deep breath, and just even imagine your belly expanding like a beach ball. And then exhaling so that your belly is the last thing to deflate. So you're just kind of practicing belly breathing. And just even 3 breaths like that can do a lot to deflate the emotion that you're feeling and to just slow you down. Oftentimes, especially with like fear and anger, I stop breathing, and that's not a good position to be in. That kind of doesn't help me make productive decisions as a leader. And so the second step is to breathe. The next thing is to allow, accept, or even appreciate the sensation. And I'll just read from their book there. They said, begin by simply allowing. Ask yourself the question, can I allow these sensations to be here? If you can, go beyond that by accepting or even appreciating the sensations by just allowing them, but just allowing them is sufficient. Remember that allowing emotion is the opposite of resisting or repressing it. And, this is really tough. I think it's easier for things like joy to appreciate it. But really, I think we talked about this in the last mindset with gratitude for things that we might perceive as negative. Similarly here, appreciating the sadness, appreciating the anger, appreciating the fear, not making it wrong, not making it bad, just realizing it plays a role in all of us as human beings. And then lastly, they say match your experience with your expression. And the way that they do this, I've done this in much more extreme forms in our men's groups work, but they just talk about, if that feeling had, like, what is the sound it wants to make, or the movement? If I'm feeling angry, maybe I want to pound my chest or pound the table, like give a release, right? Think of all the times you felt anger and just pushed it down into your stomach, instead moving it, acting it out, sorrow. What is the sound that you would make if you were letting that sorrow move? And they make a really good point about how children and animals who aren't as mired in their heads as we are as adults, they make a lot of sounds, right? My dog, Hemingway, he whines when he's feeling afraid, and he barks when he's feeling angry. He just moves it naturally. And my son, Bodhi, the same thing. When he's feeling sad, he feels sad. And, it's crazy. It really is kind of like 90 seconds of sorrow, and then he's on to playing with his bricks or whatever else. And so I like this sense, and I think that probably for myself and many of you, this is probably the step that's the hardest, is actually acting it out. It may feel silly, or it may feel like really self-conscious, but when I get in the habit of doing this, it does really work. So those steps again are locate the sensation in your body, breathe, allow, accept, or appreciate the sensation, and then match your experience with your expression. I want to share one other piece, but one thing I'm trying to commit to is throughout this coming week, just checking in more frequently. What am I feeling in this moment? What is the emotion that is going on for me? And I'm flipping back to their list because I thought it was so succinct and so good. I don't want to misrepresent this. Let's see. Angry, sad, scared, joyful, or sexual. Just those 5. What am I feeling in this moment? And then seeing if that needs to move, and you can follow those 4 steps. Now, just to bring this home for a business setting, what I loved about this is they talked about the wisdom that these feelings give us. And so I'm just going to kind of skip around reading parts of their book that I'd highlighted. So fear tells a leader that something important needs to be known. One form involves something that is not being faced. Fear is the body's way of saying, wake up. And then jumping ahead, a second form of fear tells a leader that something new wants to be learned. This conscious fear is different from unconscious or toxic fear, which is almost always about a made-up future state. It is anxiety disconnected from the present moment. And then sadness, and I'm just going to jump around in these highlights here, but sadness tells a leader that something needs to be let go of, said goodbye to, moved on from. Sadness is the energy of loss. Something once meaningful is going away. It could be a person, a dream, a vision for the company, a belief, an opportunity. They talk about above the line and below the line. Below the line is when we're unconscious as leaders. Above the line is when we're conscious. So they go on to say sadness below the line is always connected to a belief in, quote, poor me. I'm suffering because what is happening to me. This unconscious sadness can last for hours, days, or years. Instead of a 90-second wave that moves through the body, it is more like a boulder buried at the bottom of the ocean. And then they talk about joy. Joy tells a leader that something needs to be celebrated, appreciated, or laughed at, or someone needs to be patted on the back. Joy below the line, or unconsciously, looks like circumstantial happiness. I'm happy because the circumstances outside me are good. If the circumstances change, my happiness changes. On the other hand, authentic joy is based on a deep experience of internal well-being. We actually call it, quote, uncaused joy because it just is. And then sexual feelings are the energy of creativity and creation. They tell the leader that something new wants to be birthed, to be created, to come into the world. So I just really liked that. And let me just give one more example because I've seen someone else I highlighted. So here's an example. So they talk about a group they were working with where the leader, the CEO, is really angry. And so they said if they were feeling anger, they were asked to wonder about what was no longer of service and needed to be destroyed. If they were feeling fear, they were asked to wonder about what they were supposed to, quote, wake up to, pay attention to, and learn from. If they were feeling sadness, they were asked to get curious about what they needed to let go of, whether that be beliefs, ideas, people's dreams, hopes, and visions. So I hope that lands for you in the way that it did for me. I just like the way that they link emotions to insights. And, I'm trying to be more curious as a leader. And it really does drive me to curiosity of like, okay, what is this anger telling me? What is this sadness telling me? What is this joy telling me? Even in that case of joy, like, oh yeah, something does need to be celebrated. Let's celebrate that. We don't celebrate as much as a company as we should. So hope you enjoy that in this mindset episode on feeling. We'll be back on Monday with a traditional formatted interview of a military veteran about their civilian career. Take care.